Zero apologies.
Droppin Truths.
This is Kyle Cronk.
And I'm Dr. Sarah Lloyd.
We are here to bring you compelling topics on social justice and anti-racism work in our local community with YMCA leaders.
We're so excited you're joining us. We hope you learn together and you get to grapple with the truths we drop.
So it's time to do the work. Buckle up. Zero apologies.
Droppin Truths.
Ooh, that was a rough opening. Hopefully the show gets better.
I need them to show the entire set of events because that was intense.
that was good. Welcome.
What's up? Welcome to you. Welcome back, Kyle Cronk.
Oh, it feels good to be back. No apologies. We're
None?
dropping truths.
You don't have any apologies?
I don't.
Okay, great.
And why are we here? We're here to do what?
School people up, make space, model what it looks like
Ooh,
to
I love it.
Do
School
the work.
people up, make space, have people sit with hard truths that are in our world. Mm-hmm. And, we don't all, we verily.
Very
I don't
rarely.
even know what that
That's
is.
what that is, verily.
That is.
Or
exactly
in the
what it is.
Bible, they used to say verily,
Oh, yeah.
like verily.
Way to go.
Like verily saith the Lord,
Oh, yeah. Good one.
pastor's kid, so.
Yeah, for sure. So these episodes are not, as you can tell, these episodes are not pre-scripted in any way, shape, or form.
Actually, I just read all of that off my teleprompter.
Yeah. Oh, what a
Verily
disaster.
saith the Lord.
So we're getting a rough start to episode 5,000. But we were talking
we should have stopped at 4,999.
in between the episodes, you were asking me, like, do we know what we're going to talk about? And, these aren't scripted, but we were having conversations and we were talking about middle names.
Yeah.
And then you started talking, it floored me because I'd never heard about that. After I thought about it a minute after you said it, then it makes sense to me because of the systemic racism that exists in our society. Let's talk about your name. You have a name that is...
My name is fucking epic.
Your name is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But that's not why we're talking about it. We're talking about the purpose behind why you were named Sarah and why you were named a middle name and why you, your last name is your last name. But
why my last name came from slave owners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But let's go back to what you said in the break. Like, I didn't even know this. Like,
yeah. So Logan and I were talking because Logan also has a professionally adjacent first name and then a ethnic middle name.
yes.
What we were talking about is how people would either like make fun of us or point out that like we have like white sounding first names so that we can get jobs and ethnic sounding middle names so that we can survive public school.
Right.
So basically Sarah can get a job and Monique will fuck you up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so as the person that is navigating life as a white male, not ever thinking about his first name, last name, middle name in any context about what that's going to do to me, what that's going to present to me, how that's going to present to me. So hearing that for the first time that your parents would have specifically had to sit down and think, okay, how do I make sure that my child can be successful in the names that I give them? Was something that gave me tremendous amount of pause. So I'm just acknowledging. So again, are these shows scripted? They're not. And here's a guy that has gone through 51 years of life, not thinking much about names. And it's a little embarrassing. It's a little sad that somehow I don't have to do that and other people do. And that's, again, back to, I guess, the motivation behind why I'm in this work and doing the work is shit like that really bugs me. And I want someone to, so when I think about how I named my children, I wanted them to be successful, of course, and I wanted them to have names that I liked, but I didn't think about the oppressiveness nature of our society in naming our children. And that is, again, so back to the...
Both because you don't have to, but also they don't have to.
Right.
And in those moments, it's like, that's why I'm a big proponent of the idea that like unconscious bias in this day and age isn't possible because there are so many pieces of information, both consciously and then also like just environmentally, that clue you into the fact that things are real fucked up. That it's like I know plenty of white people who have named their kids outrageous shit. And it's like, when I think about what does it look like for their children to navigate life, I understand that it's a non-factor. So you can be as creative as you want to. And I understand that like my children, because I grew up as a Sarah, and it was like, which Sarah? Constantly. Which one?
Meaning,
because there were always at least two of us.
A bunch of Sarahs. Oh,
always.
Okay.
And it would be rude to say the black one. So they normally said L, for Sarah Lloyd. But like, so I named my children very unique and beautiful and, pretty non-white sounding names. And consciously know that because of that, they're going to navigate things that I didn't have to navigate. Right? But I understood that and factored that in. And so there has to be a level of like, I know there are no consequences, or it doesn't occur to me to think about consequences as I navigate life, that indicates you understand how impactful the system and how it shows up is, right? It's just like that. What is that woman's name? Oh my God. Anyway, she did like the blue eyes and the brown eyes thing, right?
Yep.
But she had a video later on where she was in a college like auditorium, and she was like, raise your hand or stand up or something if you would like to be treated how black people are.
Ooh.
And this was like in the, 80s, 90s. And everyone just sat there looking at her, and she's
course.
like, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't understand my question. How black people are treated, you would sign up for that. Just go ahead and stand up, and everyone's looking. And she's like, right, because it's happening.
Right.
So you don't get to sit there and be like, oh, I had no idea. You knew, you just didn't apply any real energy to doing anything about it.
Right. So so I did think about unconscious bias, because we talked about that. You touched on it briefly. So that's what you mean by that? That like unconscious bias is not a thing because there's so much information out there, and it's a lack of diligence on the part of white people.
Right. Because I think my personal opinion is I get unconscious bias is rooted in all of this research and stuff. So cool. Get it. And the people who put it together, fantastic work. I think it's giving people language around how they navigate the process. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a white-centered concept that allows for the idea that like, well, I haven't done anything because I didn't notice it was happening. And I'm like, in the age of information like we're in, where we can literally watch footage of people dying and have that spread everywhere.
Right.
I have a really hard time buying into the idea that you just like had no awareness because of moments like that, where it's like, okay, so trading places then and be black. People are like, nah, I'm good.
Right.
Like, right. Because you may not know the extent, you may not know the full depth, you may not know the history of why, but you fucking know that black people got the real short end of that fucking deal.
Right. For sure. So
and it's not even a deal; it's still pending.
It's still happening. I mean, to say that the deal's not over, and that's one of the points of the podcast, is to help combat that and hopefully try to change that system. Mm-hmm. The whole naming thing, I thought that was interesting. And
you're welcome. Shout out to Logan.
Yeah, Logan and Sarah. Thank you for that. And I think that allows me to, as a person that's navigating the work as a white person, how do I consistently, and consistency is probably the best way that I can explain it, is how do you consistently show up in that space every day to continue to push against that system? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did write down at some point was talking about unconscious bias, but because there's unconscious bias about a lot of different things, and not just race. I mean, it could be age factors, could be all kinds of different things.
Sure. I just think it's a cop-out. That's how I feel.
Right. No, that's real.
And I think
because you could do because you totally can do the work.
Yeah, and it's like, okay.
Especially now with
If I was like, hey, Kyle, I have a free house for you and your family to live in, okay?
We're going with analogies. I can't wait.
Absolutely. And it's coming like it's fresh off the dome, okay? So I'm like, hey, Kyle, I have a free house for you and your family to live in.
Sweet.
you would probably have some questions about why it's free, but you'd be like, cool, let's get it. Let's
Generally,
go to the house.
I'm in.
Right. And I'm like, but here's the thing. You have to bring your children, your wife, your mother-in-law, your dog, and all that when you come check it out the first time. Like,
Okay.
you can't scan it ahead of time. You can't drive by the address.
Ooh.
You need to bring your kids, bring your family, like, bring it, and we're going to check it out together. Okay. Would you have some questions?
Yes.
Why?
Not sure why.
Okay. What would your questions be?
Is it haunted?
Okay. Great. That's a great first question. Like, obviously, a free house is haunted. What else?
Does it have a roof?
Okay. Why does that matter?
I'd like to be dry.
Okay. What else?
Plumbing?
Okay. Why does that matter?
We'd like running water.
Okay. Any other questions?
Doors,
Doors. Why do you need doors?
just in case we want to be warm.
Okay.
Heater.
A
Does it have
heater.
heat?
Okay. Does it have heat?
Windows.
What else?
How close is it to where I want to be?
Ooh. What else?
Does it have a yard?
Ooh. Okay. You need a yard for the dog, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be it for right now.
Okay.
Any appliances?
Ooh. Does it have appliances? Okay. Or do we need to bring them?
Yeah.
Why do you care about appliances?
Well, I'd like to cook something.
Okay.
Keep stuff cold.
Okay. So you just in like 1 minute, you thought about like 12 different questions, right?
Yeah.
None of those were, is it safe?
No.
Right.
Well, other than the doors.
Sure. But you were like warmth, not
Yeah.
keeping creepers out, right?
Well, no, I mean, that was, yeah. But generally, you're right.
Because when I present an opportunity for you, there's an assumption that you're going to be safe.
Yes.
I don't have that, right? So when I'm walking through that same checklist of vigilance is, I would have thought of like 50 more questions. First being like, what's the catch? And second, is it safe? And that vigilance is what I have to walk through every single situation with, right? Where you get to be like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that, but let's get it. So that's the kind of, that's the difference between, I think, consistency and diligence. Because consistency, you can take a vitamin every single day and be like, nailed it. Are you exponentially more healthy? Not sure. But if you diligently manage your wellness, that's a different situation,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
So is it, like, in your life, how are you showcasing diligence, not consistency? Because consistency won't cut it anymore.
That's a good one.
You're welcome. I'm here all day, so.
Yeah. I'll think about that diligence part. I mean, so tell me what you're thinking about diligence versus consistency as it relates to diligence. So diligence is the more depth of questioning, or what are you getting at?
I think consistency means, like, you can just do something.
I get it
and
with the
repeat
vitamin.
it,
You use the
right?
vitamin thing. So you're taking the vitamin. That's
Right. So
consistency.
you have an action and you repeat it. That's consistency.
Yeah, no, I got it.
But diligence requires actually full understanding of what's happening, the context, all of the different things,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
So there's more, you can't be diligent and be haphazard, but you can be consistently haphazard.
Yes. Okay. So it's about depth and breadth of the immersion in the thing.
And like a thoroughness and a need to, like, not just do to be like, I think a lot of people are performative.
Yeah, I was going to
and
say, were you going to
consistent.
performative and consistent?
Because you can be consistently performative.
Right. So you got your Black Lives Matter sign on your
Yeah, and
window.
you change your Facebook profile thing to the frame that has Black Lives Matter. So then, like, every time someone sees Kyle Cronk, they're like, oh my God, he is consistent. It's like, sure, but he doesn't do anything else except that fucking frame on his Facebook, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not in reality, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
You
So
could
I
wear
like that.
anti-racist shirts and
Or
say
socks.
slurs. There you
Yeah.
go. Those socks are
let's
fly.
not do that though. So I like that. So the diligence. So then it is about depth, breadth, context, and how you're showing up in the work, and then what you're doing about it once you are in the work, because there's some actionable stuff in there. I mean, being anti-racist is actionable. It's going against racist policies. It's speaking out when there's racist events. It's trying to we talked about centering in the last conversation. It's trying to do that work to figure out how do you center blackness in predominantly centered white spaces. It's not something that you just wake up and do one day. I mean, without a lot of thought. The diligence.
Right. Yeah.
Back to the diligence thing. It's not like I'm going to wake up tomorrow
It's not
and
just going to happen. No.
Yeah, right. So there's both intention and expected outcome, kind of.
Yeah.
Right? For something to be different.
Absolutely. Like painstaking.
Yeah, that's good. I do want to say that my question about the ghost was a safety-oriented question, because I do not want to be anywhere near a ghost.
Great. Noted.
Fair enough. Do you? I'm on this ghost thing. I don't know why.
Okay,
I
great.
have a question about.
Let's
So
go down
when
the road of
you
ghosts.
do you watch any television that would have commercials of scary movies come on?
No.
Are you ever in that space?
No.
Okay. Because I
Do
can't
you have
even-
like cable?
No, I've just like
How do you watch TV with commercials?
Hulu.
Oh, you got to upgrade.
Oh,
Yeah. I think it's
that's sad.
appropriate for your pay rate that you like have the $12.99 Hulu instead of the $8.99.
Well,
I think you can.
so
swing for it.
but this was about ghosts, and
Okay.
I can't even deal with scary movies. Like like it'll
Okay.
come on,
Right.
and I can't even watch it.
Wow, that's intense.
Are you a scary movie fan? Like, would you go in pre-COVID world? Would you attend a scary movie to
Here's
be
the
scared?
thing about scary movies, and I'm going to shout out to a really good friend of mine, James Miles. He is my favorite human on the planet, maybe.
Wow.
He's so dope. He's so dope.
He might
the-
need to get on a
Oh my
special
God.
guest.
Yes. But also, the day I met him, he was like, I'm James Miles and I do dope shit. That was his introduction. And I
Wow.
was like,
Fair enough.
But he was right. He does do dope shit. Anyway, so one day
I got to meet him.
we were doing this like week-long training thing. Shout out to Corey Sabarbaro and also UW. Ooh,
Let's
but
go.
yes.
Go
Okay.
Cougs.
Go Cougs. So we're at this week-long training, and at one point during the evenings, we had time off sometimes, and we would like hang out as a little like group of people at this training thing. And Us had come out then, so this is back in the day.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Let's go see Us," and I was like, "Oh, I don't do scary movies."
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Sarah, you survive being black every day. What's scarier than that?"
Ooh.
And I was like, "Nothing." And he was like, "Right. So are you coming?" And I was like, "For sure." And then we didn't get to go, so I still haven't seen Us. But when I think about scary movies all the time, I think about that day. where
Yeah.
He was like, literally, my brother told me when I was younger, nothing is scarier than being black in America.
Wow. That is something.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that was what was going to be said. And
I know,
it's-
because you were like laughing, and I was like, oh, he's going to want to stop
he's
laughing.
not ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't ready.
I wasn't. But I'm glad that we talked about that, because
There you
that
go.
is,
Way to
For
bring
sure.
up ghosts.
yeah. You can connect everything back to systemic racism.
For sure.
That
Because it's literally in everything.
everywhere.
Yeah.
it's woven.
and-
It's woven into the fabric.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, like, because I've been talking to people recently about, like, it's not like it comes easy for me. It's not, like sometimes I'll be like, just do better. And then people will be like, yeah, it's easy for you to say because, like, you or whatever. And I'm like, like, I'm challenging my programming every day and every
Yeah.
minute as well, because it's not like I was like born on fucking woke island and then was like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? I literally was like, something doesn't add up, but I keep navigating a system.
Sure.
And particularly our education system, which is wired and structured to perpetuate white supremacy always.
Mm.
And I kill it in the academic setting.
Yes.
And so to be simultaneously walking through a system as it's trying to perpetuate its mania and saying in every single step, like that is not only challenging your programming, it's challenging mine.
yeah. No.
And so the understanding of, like, again, I'm not asking you to do shit that I'm not doing right now. I just need you to join me in it is critical.
Yeah, and for sure. I was trying to think if there was another follow-up question that I had within that. I did want to talk. We won't have time in this particular episode, but I think
Challenge
interesting,
accepted.
an interesting episode to have some dialogue, and this could be further learning in community. Is to take a specific entity like education. You could take even elementary education or the public education and talk about what would need to happen to get to push up against some of those systemic things that are in there that need to change to be able to center blackness and stuff like that. We've had conversations with people that are in the education world where they were talking about, what would it look like to center blackness in education? I mean, in a physical environment. And I think that would be an interesting educational learning opportunity for people.
Potentially. But I also think like some of these conversations, so I think a couple things. One, I think there is a deep dependence on conversation as the path towards freedom that is rooted in whiteness. Where it's like, if we just like get the right people around this like proverbial table, which first of all, it's COVID, like let's take that shit to go. And also like what does it look like to say like conversation is necessary but not what moves?
Sure.
And I think in those spaces to also say like, if you really want to understand the truth, you have to let go of some assumptions. One is that it's complicated because it's not. And two, that it will be an inspirational journey in which you leave with action steps, because sometimes what it looks like is, it's like in relationships, right? Like if you have a partner and they look at you and they're like, you're not meeting my needs. And then you're like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Like, what should I do? And they're like, I don't know, fucking figure it out. Like you would figure it out if you valued that relationship. It's the same though. I think there's this pressure that's put on Black folks who are courageous enough to say, you guys are fucking up. Then it's like, okay, well help us. And it's like, bitch, like care about the fucking outcome enough to figure it out, because you do that in everything. We watch whiteness do that in everything. Right. When people are talking about living on Mars, okay? Realistically, like it's in the near future, we're going to live on Mars. We're going to have shuttles. It's going to be a whole vibe, and we're going to build a whole new fucking civilization on Mars. Right. Why? Because we're fucking it up on Earth. And still, I'm sitting here saying, you're figuring out how to live on Mars, but you're not figuring out how to eliminate racism?
Yeah, that's silly.
That is the epitome of what it's like to be proximate to whiteness.
Yeah, no, I can see how that would be so many different things as to being fucked up.
I think that's your first curse word on Zero Apologies, by the way. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I could see it. No, I just like curse all the time. People are like, your mouth.
Yeah, well, we talked about that in the last thing, right?
What?
I mean, you alluded to, what it means to be Black in America, Black woman, Blackness. Have to check yourself. Mm-hmm. Where am I going? What space am I going to be in? Mm-hmm. What's my facial expression? What am I going to wear? What am I going to look like? How am I going to not be too loud, too quiet? Mm-hmm. How much am I going to swear? Mm-hmm. I mean, when you think about all the ways that you're harmed or Black people are harmed in a hour, day, month, 40 years, whatever it is it any wonder that people come angry? Is it any wonder that people are emotional? Is it any wonder? I mean, how the audacity of white people is shocking sometimes. But right, back to your point about not solving racism, but we're going to solve how to, go back to when we threw people up to the moon. Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't it be cool to explore that? And like, how about you explore
Earth,
all the shit that's going wrong here?
Right. Mm-hmm. So
but that's
again,
what it looks like.
But that's so. Again, this is so. It's almost embarrassing to admit that I have not been. I have not been tracking the Mars, colonization deal. Back to colonization. That would be another thing to think about. Get on Clubhouse. Yeah, I'm not on that thing. I kind of don't really know what that is, but that's not a shock to you, given your your knowledge of my technological skills,
Real good.
right? Huh? But texting's getting way better.
You know what? You're a beast at texting.
What was I saying? Oh, do you remember? I don't remember now.
You haven't
Oh.
looked at Mars.
I haven't really tracked the Mars thing. So here's the embarrassing part. Again, this just shows the whiteness and how centered whiteness can be, on that it doesn't dawn on me until you put it in context that, hey, we're solving a bunch of things that are, I think people would think that trying to live on Mars would be a challenge, trying to figure that out and what the science that would need to go into that and all the logistical challenges that one would need. And then somehow we decide that it's not worth talking about and fixing the systemic racism that's in every single system. Judicial system, home ownership, lending, economics, education, prisons,
So two
housing.
things. Two things. Number
Yeah.
one, imagine then what you would infer as the value of your life if that were the priority array.
That's why that's the embarrassing part. I mean, I went, that's the thing.
And I think second is, Jeff Duncan Andrade,
Oh, yeah.
who is one of my favorite people. I think I'm going to reach out to him also.
We
It's
do
gonna be a
need
thing.
to send him
But-
this episode.
Jeff Duncan Andrade, he talks about how you can't be driven to do the work if you don't have proximity to the pain,
Yeah, no, yeah.
because that informs your life in a different way, right? And so
For sure.
I think in addition to that, understanding fully what it means to navigate a space in which you are constantly reminded that you weren't considered, you are not welcome, and actually it'd be better if you weren't here in general. And that's just environmental before anyone speaks to you.
Yeah.
And so it's like James Baldwin said, right? Like, to be a Negro and to be paying attention is to be in rage all of the
All
time.
the time, right.
Right? And then I think about white folks who walk up to this work and are like, what happens if I mess up, though? And I'm like, two things. You're afforded errors in your existence. And number two, who the fuck expects you to be perfect except for whiteness? And we're not talking about centering whiteness anymore. So it feels like redundant conversation to engage in a conversation about how white people are going to mess up, and so it's going to be okay, and we're making a space
Yeah,
for
right.
people to mess up. It's like,
Yeah, no,
that's what it is to be human. You just don't understand it because whiteness doesn't allow any of us to do it. And that's a point in time in which you're like, see, the centering of whiteness isn't just harming me, it's harming you too.
yeah. And back to, I know the time, the clock is ticking in terms of the episode. Thank you for centering that whole repositioning and centering what it means to be black, because that is really one of the ways to dismantle the system is to recenter. And so I appreciate that. Great episode.
Drop it like it's hot.
I thought that was really good.
You're welcome.
Do you have a black-owned business
Boy, do I.
that you would like to talk about?
No, actually, I don't.
What?
I know.
All right.
I do love black-owned businesses, though.
All
I
right.
just came ill-prepared
Well,
today.
here's one thing that you could do to support black-owned businesses, or one thing that you could do. You could do two things for
Ooh.
this episode.
What
Two
can you do?
action steps. One, research black-owned businesses in Thurston County.
Do it.
Two, if you can't find one, donate to a black-run organization,
There you go.
specifically a nonprofit. If you can't find those, donate to the South Sound YMCA and earmark it to Zero Apologies, Droppin Truths,
go.
and we'll make sure that we continue the social justice anti-racist dialogue.
I love that. You were ready. I feel like
I was not ready.
I feel
felt
like you lobbed it up for your own self. That was amazing.
No. Well, you're welcome.
I like it.
Sometimes I do okay.
Way to go. Speaking of excellence,
Yes.
do you know what I think is so excellent?
I have an idea.
What do you think?
But I don't want to spoil it.
What do you think it is?
Well, I think it could be Cabin Light Studios.
Oh my God, I love Cabin Light Studios.
Why do you like them so much?
First of all, each one of them as individuals are like magical pandas. I just love them so much. And then on top of that, they are Brown owned and Brown operated. So when we partner with them, we're paying into Brown generational wealth, which is powerful.
Yes.
So and they're so fun to work with.
Yeah, and funny. Like all kinds of fun stuff goes on.
And Peter today is dressed like a grandpa.
Right, and he pulled it off.
He totally pulled it off.
For sure.
It's real good. Peter, it's real good.
All right. That's it. That's a wrap. Peace out.
Bye.
This was Zero Apologies.
Dropping truths.
White folks, share this with your friends and make sure you're doing the work.
And black folks, welcome home.